you also looked at international rates of suicide compared to the United States. How does the United States compare to other countries that have much stricter gun laws and far fewer firearms?
Right. So this argument that and this is one of the arguments we get when we point this out. They'll push back and say, well, if we had better gun control and guns were less available because of the stricter gun control, there would be less suicides because, and this is undeniable, a suicide attempt with a gun is more likely to succeed than somebody trying to poison themselves or even hang themselves. I think maybe only jumping off of things is comparable to guns in its finality. But there clearly would be at least a large degree of substitution because the United States, for all its guns, and we have a lot of them, is still within the normal range of first world suicide rates. Now, I'm not going to deny we are on the higher end of that range, of that normal range, but it's not like our homicide numbers where we're way outside, the normal range for first world countries. There's a handful of countries that are wealthy and have very strict gun control and have higher suicide rates than us. I think the article listed as examples Japan, South Korea, and Belgium. And I think there were others as well.
Yeah, so I believe the piece you cite a statistic that shows there's 14.6 per 100,000 suicides in the United States compared to South Korea, which has 24.6. If I'm remembering the numbers correctly here. That is a pretty stark difference, especially considering, the fact that the United States is far and away the leader in civilian gun ownership, and South Korea has some extremely strict gun laws and very few firearms per resident. So, obviously there's more going on. There's more at play here than just gun availability or gun laws when it comes to suicide, right? Is that basic conclusion?
And you can see this too by the we also have, although gun suicides I think are the majority of suicides in the United States, we do have it's not a huge majority. We still have over 20,000, I think. I said the number in the piece, but of non-gun related suicides. So I think there would be a significant amount of substitution here. I'm going to be intellectually honest. If someone cast a magic spell and every gun in the country disappeared tomorrow morning, would our suicide rate drop a little? Perhaps, but I don't think it's as dramatic as people might assume. I think it might drop, a tiny amount, but there would be substitution for other methods, because that's what other countries I've seen. I believe I should have included this in the piece, but I had read about how Australia, following its restrictions on guns, the gun ownership rate did decline, but the suicide rate didn't. There was substitution seen in that context, but I guess I should save that piece for another day when I've actually looked at the data thoroughly.
Right. That's always an important part of publishing piece. Yes. But I think ultimately, obviously you're clearly not saying that gun suicide should be ignored or that it's not a problem or that gun owners and gun control advocates alike shouldn't try to come up with the most effective way to reduce the use of firearms to commit suicide. Certainly there are initiatives. We've had podcasts dedicated specifically to this topic within the gun owning community about how to do that. Some of the best practices. There's Walk the Talk America is one example. That's who we had on for the podcast. But there are a number of initiatives out there trying to tackle this problem because it is a serious problem. But you're saying, and I think rather persuasively, obviously we published the piece, so I was fairly convinced by your arguments here, but that including gun suicides into a gun violence category is really just misleading people about what you're trying to get across, right? That's what it comes down to, basically.
Right. And I'd have far less of an objection, although this might still mislead people, if they labeled it gun-related death or said gun violence counting suicides, as long as people need to be aware of it. And look, suicide is a huge issue, and I'm the first. I think we talked about this yesterday on a call when we were discussing the article, which was that I always tell people on my side, look, if you are battling depression, or if someone in your family is, and either lock up your guns if it's someone in your family so that you're certain they can't get them, or get them out of the house, because as big of a risk, self-defense is important, but if somebody is battling depression in your house, that's the bigger threat to life when there's a gun in the house than any sort of potential crime. So I'm not trying to belittle suicide at all. It's a huge concern, and we need to watch out for people who display signs of that and get them the help they need, including encouraging them to temporarily dispossess themselves of the guns until they are in a better place, until they are treated. But yes, as you cited, I kind of frankly despise how these groups use these sad stories, these personal tragedies, as a platform when their policies don't even really relate to them very much, if at all. That's the long and short of it.
Yeah. And by the way, just as an aside here, anyone who is struggling with that or knows someone who is should reach out to a group like Walk the Talk America.
Absolutely.
For help. That's the best thing you can do is to try and reach out to somebody who is trained in these areas to help people. And I would encourage anyone who is in that situation to do so.